It ran for 5 seasons and somehow never left. The man who played America's perfect father hated the show and carried a secret that would have destroyed it. The woman who made motherhood look effortless was hiding a loneliness nobody on set ever saw. And the housekeeper everyone loved spent her final years in a place that had nothing to do with Hollywood. 6 kids, 2 parents, one housekeeper, one house that looked like everything was fine. None of it was. Number 1. Robert Reed as Mike Brady. Robert Reed was born on October 19, 1932, in Illinois, a classically trained Shakespearean actor who studied in London, and in 1969 was handed the role of Mike Brady in a show he considered beneath him from the very first day. He fought it constantly, sent producers angry memos, clashed so bitterly with creator Sherwood Schwartz that he was cut from the show's final episode entirely, the only cast member absent from the ending of the series he had anchored for 5 years. He told People magazine he didn't want the Brady Bunch anywhere near his tombstone, and yet every single week he showed up and played Mike Brady with such genuine warmth that his castmates said he was more present than their real fathers ever were. He hated the show. He loved those kids. Those are not contradictions. That is the whole story. What America never knew was that Robert Reed was gay. He carried that secret through every season, every smile, every perfect father moment the scripts required. Florence Henderson believed the weight of that double life was the source of everything that made him unhappy. That if he had been free to be himself, the anger would simply have gone. He was diagnosed HIV positive in 1991 and kept it private. When he knew he was dying, he called Florence Henderson and asked her to tell the kids. Robert Reed died on May 12, 1992, at 59 years old, with an estimated net worth of $1.5 million. His tombstone reads, "Good night, sweet prince," exactly as he always wanted. Number 2. Florence Henderson as Carol Brady. Florence Henderson was born on February 14, 1934, in Indiana, the 10th of 10 children raised in poverty, and was 34 years old when she became Carol Brady, the warm and endlessly patient mother who made it all look completely effortless every single week. She once said Carol came alive because Carol was the mother she desperately wished she had. That one line tells you everything. She poured her entire childhood longing into the role, and audiences felt it without ever knowing why. It registered as television warmth. It was something far more personal than that. She was the first woman to guest host The Tonight Show, a milestone that received a fraction of the attention it deserved. She maintained financial stability through 6 decades of work, including a long-running Wesson oil partnership. She divorced in 1985, remarried in 1987, and became a widow when her second husband died of cancer in 2002. She battled heart disease through her final years and told almost no one. 3 days before she died, she was on the set of Dancing with the Stars, not competing, just there to support Maureen McCormick. That is who she was. She showed up for her people until she physically couldn't anymore. When Robert Reed called in his final weeks, she made every single call he asked her to make. She said it was the hardest thing she ever had to do. Florence Henderson died on November 24, 2016, at 82 years old with an estimated net worth of $10 million. Carol Brady was the mother everyone wished they had. Florence Henderson turned out to be exactly that. Number 3. Ann B. Davis as Alice Nelson. Ann B. Davis was born on May 3, 1926, in New York, and was 42 years old when she put on that sky blue uniform and became Alice Nelson. Technically the housekeeper, actually the heartbeat. She was the constant in a house full of chaos, the one who always knew what was really going on and never needed credit for any of it. Before the Brady Bunch, she had already won 2 Emmy Awards for The Bob Cummings Show. She was not a supporting actress who got lucky on a family sitcom. She was a genuine talent who chose warmth over ambition and built something that outlasted everything else she could have chased. In 1976, she surprised everyone by selling her Los Angeles home and moving into a Christian, intentional community in Colorado, later relocating to Texas, where she spent the rest of her life in quiet service. She never married, something she admitted in later years was one of her deepest regrets. She had spent years bringing warmth to a television home for millions of people. She never had one entirely her own. Ann B. Davis died on June 1, 2014, at 88 years old following a fall at home. Her estimated net worth was $2 million. Alice Nelson was the gold standard for what love inside a television home looks like. 50 years on, nobody has come close. Number 4. Barry Williams as Greg Brady. Barry Williams was born on September 30, 1954, in California, and was 14 years old when he became Greg Brady, the oldest kid, the coolest one, absolutely certain he already knew everything worth knowing about everything. Greg was the prototype, the one every younger sibling measured themselves against, and every parent held up as the standard. What followed the show was the gilded cage every Brady kid walked into. He was rejected in auditions for looking too much like Greg Brady, or only offered roles mocking the fact that he was. He moved into musical theater to escape the trap, but even on Broadway, people called him Greg Brady in costume. The character followed him into every room he ever entered professionally. In 2001, a dispute with the Actors Equity Association produced a $52,000 fine and damaged his professional standing for years. 3 marriages came and went. He published his memoir, Growing Up Brady, which became the most commercially successful book any cast member produced. He married dancer Tina Mahina in 2017 and found a steadiness his earlier decades rarely offered. He co-hosts the Real Brady Bros podcast with Christopher Knight, and in January 2026 announced he was heading into the Australian jungle for I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. He is 71 years old. When he told Maureen McCormick, her first reaction was, good luck. Then she told him to jump in with both feet. Today in 2026, Barry Williams is 71 years old with an estimated net worth of $6 million. Still Greg Brady, still the one with the most stories and the most enthusiasm for telling them. Number 5. Maureen McCormick as Marcia Brady. Maureen McCormick was born on August 5, 1956, in California, and was just 13 years old when she became Marcia Brady, the golden girl every kid wanted to be, and every parent held up as proof that teenagers could actually be reasonable human beings. 50 years later, people who never watched a single episode still know the name, the hair, and the attitude. But the girl behind Marcia was quietly falling apart. After the show, she fell into cocaine addiction, later writing that she sometimes traded sex for drugs. She showed up to audition for Raiders of the Lost Ark, having not slept for 3 days. She was high. The audition was a disaster, and the story spread through Hollywood immediately. Directors stopped calling. She battled depression and bulimia simultaneously. There was a moment she stood on a balcony and threatened to jump. Michael Cummings, the man who would become her husband, chose not to walk away. Recovery was not clean or linear. She resisted antidepressants before finally accepting help, and rebuilding took years. She married Cummings in 1985, had daughter Natalie in 1989, and slowly put everything back together. Her 2008 memoir, Here's the Story, hit number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list, and finally told the truth. Today in 2026, Maureen McCormick is 69 years old, with an estimated net worth of $4 million. Marcia Brady had it all. Maureen had to fight her way back to any of it, and she did. Number 6. Eve Plum as Jan Brady. Eve Plum was born on April 29, 1958, in California, and was 11 years old when she became Jan Brady, the middle daughter, the overlooked one, the girl who gave American television one of its most enduring phrases. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. Pure middle child fury compressed into 3 words. Everyone who was ever the overlooked one felt Jan Brady in their bones. Plum played Jan's insecurity with a truth that went beyond what the comedy required. And that realness is exactly why Jan outlasted every other sibling in the pop culture memory. In 1976, she took a role requiring real courage, a teenage prostitute in the TV film Dawn, Portrait of a Teenage Runaway. Critically, it worked. Commercially, it confused audiences not ready to watch Jan Brady in that world. She got praised and punished for the same performance simultaneously. She moved into theater without chasing celebrity, became a genuine working painter with real gallery representation, and built a successful housewares line. She married Ken Pace in 1995. She skipped several Brady reunions, not from bitterness, but from a quiet determination to be known as something other than Jan. Today in 2026, Eve Plum is 67 years old with an estimated net worth of $5 million. Jan Brady cried that nobody ever noticed her. 50 years later, everyone still does. Number 7. Christopher Knight as Peter Brady. Christopher Knight was born on November 7, 1957, in New York, and was 11 years old when he became Peter Brady, caught permanently in the middle, making the best of it with warmth and a good heart. Peter was never the coolest, or the youngest, or the most dramatic. He was the dependable one. That is a harder thing to play than it looks. Auditions after the show ended one of 2 ways. He looked too much like Peter Brady, or he was only offered parts mocking the fact that he was. He stopped auditioning entirely and made one of the most decisive pivots any Brady kid ever managed. He walked into technology, co-founded visual software, and built a genuine career in boardrooms that had nothing to do with the Brady name. His most public chapter came through marriage to model Adrienne Curry, which became the VH1 reality series My Fair Brady. They married in 2006 and divorced on their 5th anniversary. He found steadiness in his 4th marriage in 2016 and later founded Christopher Knight Home Furniture, a business that has outlasted every acting credit he ever accumulated. Today in 2026, Christopher Knight is 68 years old with an estimated net worth of $10 million, the majority earned in boardrooms, not on sets. The Brady who built his best life the furthest from the Brady name, then came back to enjoy it on his own terms. Number 8. Mike Lookinland as Bobby Brady. Mike Lookinland was born on December 19, 1960, in Utah, and was 8 years old when he became Bobby Brady. The middle son who idolized Jesse James, got into every scheme, and spent 5 seasons never quite learning from any of it. You always wanted Bobby to be okay, even when he absolutely deserved the trouble he was in. After the show, Lookinland drifted between a career he couldn't build and an identity he couldn't escape. In 1997, driving on a Utah highway, he lost control and flipped his car. His blood alcohol level was more than 3 times the legal limit. He survived. He was arrested. He completed rehabilitation and never drank again. That accident, which should have killed him, turned out to be the moment his real life finally started. He walked away from acting entirely, worked behind the scenes in production, until a workplace accident severed the tip of his finger, then founded Just Add Water Custom Concrete in Salt Lake City. He builds things with his hands. He came back for A Very Brady Renovation in 2019 and showed off his concrete work on the original house. The spotlight was never what he wanted, and that quiet certainty is something most child stars never find. Today in 2026, Mike Lookinland is 65 years old with an estimated net worth of $2 million. The Brady kid who built a real life instead of chasing the famous one, and never looked back. Number 9. Susan Olsen as Cindy Brady. Susan Olsen was born on August 14, 1961, in California, and was just 7 years old when she became Cindy Brady, the littlest one, the pigtails, the lisp, The one who asked the most embarrassing questions at exactly the wrong moments and made everyone love her for it anyway. After the show, classmates mocked her for Cindy's tattletale personality, and the wounds left lasting damage. Her second marriage produced a son, Michael, later diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Raising a child with special needs while rebuilding a career brought enormous pressure, and that marriage ended in 2004. She became one of the most outspoken LGBTQ advocates in the cast, posting an open letter about Robert Reed after his death that hit harder than anything else written about him, precisely because it came from the youngest Brady. But in 2016, she was caught in an online scandal, accused of making discriminatory remarks against the very community she had spent years defending. She issued a clarification. The damage was real and lasting. The contradiction is uncomfortable. It is also part of the story. Today in 2026, Susan Olsen is 64 years old with an estimated net worth of $2 million. Cindy Brady was the smallest. Susan Olsen spent 50 years proving she had the biggest and most complicated heart. Number 10. What the Brady Bunch was really selling. The Brady Bunch ran from 1969 to 1974. 5 seasons, 117 episodes. It never cracked the top 25 in the Nielsen ratings while it was actually airing. It was canceled. Not retired, canceled. And then syndication turned it into one of the most recognized shows in television history. That trajectory alone should tell you something. The show premiered the same year Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and the same year the Manson murders terrified the country. America in 1969 was fracturing along every fault line simultaneously. Vietnam, civil rights, political assassination, generational war. And into all of that walked a blended family in a split-level house with an orange kitchen, who solved every problem in 22 minutes and always came out the other side intact. That was not television. That was a promise. A specific, deliberate, completely unkeepable promise that if everyone just stayed in the house and talked it through, everything would be fine. The cast paid the price for the distance between that promise and the reality of their actual lives. Reed carried a secret the promise required him to hide. McCormick fell apart in the gap between Marcia's perfection and her own. Moran slipped through completely once the cameras stopped. The Brady Bunch didn't show America what families were. It showed America what families desperately wanted to believe they could be. The difference between those two things is where every real story in this video actually lived. That's the Brady Bunch, then and now. A show that never cracked the top ratings while it aired, and somehow never left after it ended. Drop a comment, which story hit you hardest? And here's the real question. Do you think the Brady house represented something America actually had, or something it was already losing and couldn't admit? Because the more you know about the people inside it, the harder that question gets. If this one took you straight back to that split-level house and that orange kitchen, you already know what to do.